Welcome to episode 41 of 100 Years of Marine Corps Tankers, a channel that was created as a way to honor the lineage and history of the United States Marine Armored Community. Through these interviews, the stories of Marine tankers will remain the test of time and will not be forgotten. This week features a Marine officer that hails from the Armored Community after achieving the esteemed rank of Colonel and serving 30 years while in service in the uniform, and another 26 supporting the youth of his community, all while honoring the history and lineage of General Douglas MacArthur. Welcome to the channel, Colonel William J. Davis.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here, sir. Sir, per SOP, we're going to start from the beginning. So I'm going to ask you, what conditions led up to your graduation from California State University and subsequent commissioning as a second lieutenant in 1966?
Well, I was a member of PLC program and graduated, went back the summer of my junior year for the 10 weeks, and then went back to school for the last year, graduated in 1966, and then reported to basic school at Quantico's in Charlie Company class 2-67. They graduated in January of 1967.
And did you know from the onset, while being a TBS, that you wanted to be an armor officer?
Oh, yeah. I was either tanks or artillery, but just through relatives and friends, decided to be a tanker.
Hoorah, sir. And we've already had the pleasure of interviewing some veterans that have served with 3rd Tank Battalion during Vietnam. But to my knowledge, you were the first platoon commander and company commander to be featured. What are some of your memories from this period, sir?
Well, I think it's like I basically, let me just give a little bit to fill in. When I graduated from basic school, I was assigned to 2nd Division, 2nd Tank Battalion. Reported in at Camp Lejeune, and then after being there for about, I guess, 6 weeks, reported to the Marine the Marine Rep at Fort Knox for Army Armor School. 10 weeks there, and then reported back to 2nd Tank Battalion, where I was advised I was going to be going on a med cruise for a 6-month period as part of BLT 1-2, or 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines, that was reinforced with all of the elements necessary to make up a battalion landing team. We then were to be the afloat Marine force within the Mediterranean to respond to a situation that might occur or might not. 6-month cruise. I got back and immediately had orders to Vietnam. On the way, stopped by the military government school, civil affairs school at Fort Gordon, Georgia, to fill a quota the Marine Corps had, spent 10 weeks, and then reported in to 3rd Marine Division in July of 1968. Was be there through August of 69, assigned initially to Bravo Company as the XO and a platoon commander. Went back then December to division staff and was the S2, the S3 Alpha, and the S5. Did that for a period of about, through March, and then March went back to take over B Company as the CEO of the company. Spent then that remainder of the time. We were located at Camp Carroll with 3rd Marine Regiment. Carroll was closed. We ended up finding an area near the village of Vinh Dai, which was halfway between Dong Ha and Cam Lo. And we were there with a CB unit, an Army Duster battery. Dusters were a 40 millimeter guns mounted on an M41 chassis. Mainly it was an anti-aircraft weapon, but the Army was using it in a ground support role, and they were located in the same cantonment area that we were. We were there at Vinh Dai. We did quite a bit of operations, both with Marine forces in support of, as well as the units of the 1st ARVN Division that were located at GLN. With the ARVN Division, we had a tank company and an infantry company, and we're engaged in sweeps around Leatherneck Square area to locate and then to fix on the enemy.
And you just talked about the mission set, sir. And one of the things that I learned was the mission changed rather dramatically depending on where the tank units were assigned and where they were operating. Can you expand a little bit more on what your company's mission was and the diversity between it?
Yeah, we were primarily assigned to support either 3rd Marines or 9th Marines out at Vandergrift. What would happen would us and Alpha Company would switch in terms of providing forces in Leatherneck Square area when they were needed on sweeps or on cordon search or any other missions that might come up at the time. We operated on a number of occasions with, I think probably the max number was 12 tanks at any one time that were involved in this establishing really a finding and then a blocking point. There were some missions when we were out at Vandergrift that we were ramping tanks and then using them in indirect fire to get nightly H&I fires. So the missions would run from that to the one where you were operating with in support of a company, be it a company of Marines or a company of ARVN in cordon and search operations, search and destroy operations.
And what would you say your biggest challenges? Obviously, the enemy, is probably...
the biggest challenge was mines.
Okay.
We hit a lot of mines. I think in 1 month period we hit about 30 mines, wow. And sometimes you'd have multiple, but basically the majority of them were anti-tank mines. They had a plastic East German anti-tank mine that looked like a small tire. And you'd find a lot of those, but it was one that you'd hit it, you'd shoot a short track, pull up your get the junk out of the way, and then get out of there. Because in most of the areas around Leatherneck Square, if you stayed in an area for any extended period of time, you were probably going to be getting mortars or artillery.
Sure. And the role of tanks, I find it interesting the way that the tanks were used from Vietnam up until Gulf War and obviously modern day. It seems to have shifted back and forth a couple of times. Your tanks were like I think you'd mentioned were in support of the ARVN and the infantry units, or were you all battle space owners and a maneuver force as well?
Well, we did everything. We had some that were providing convoy security, others mine sweeping in the roads, and provided maybe 2 or 3 tanks, probably 3, as much as a platoon running with them, to the operations that we were doing a fair amount of maneuver with definitely a tank infantry coordination, but the numbers would vary from a platoon to maybe two platoons, or at max probably about 12 tanks.
Sir, in '69, did you all close up Vietnam, or how did you get your company out of there?
Well, what they did is in I think it was April, they stood down Charlie Company, and then it got ready to go back to Okinawa, and I think it left, as I remember right, it left country about around June of '69, went back to Okinawa, and then Alpha Company was next, and I believe it was, had rotated home, but I think that they went back in August or September, and then in October timeframe, Bravo Company was the last of 3rd tanks that left for Okinawa, and all of them went back in Okinawa. After that division, our battalion headquarters, I think you had an element that went back with each group, and by I think when Alpha Company went back, the majority of the battalion staff was gone, but that I'm not sure of because I wasn't there.
Yes, sir. And you said when you rotated home, your next duty assignment was with Guard Company, Marine Barracks, Alameda, California. And off the air, we were discussing the fact that I was not familiar with this unit. It predates obviously my time in the Marine Corps, but if you could kind of explain the way that these Marine barracks were structured throughout the United States and what your duties were.
Well, there was a time, a long tradition in the Marine Corps of having Marines aboard ship, and also at Marine barracks and located with all major naval bases and naval air stations that would provide the security for the installation. And then did a fair in Alameda. We did a fair amount of ceremonial duties, but the main factor was to provide security for the naval air station.
Sure. And I find
it continued, where most of the barracks were either consolidated or drawn down, and by the 1980s, I'd say you were down to the point that now in 1980s, 1990s, the only ones that I can recall that were left was naturally at Marine Barracks 8th and I, but that's a separate category. And then there was Marine Barracks Japan, Marine Barracks Philippines, Marine Barracks Guam, and then those were the last three to leave, to be drawn down.
Yes, sir. And then reading through your bio, sir, I found it interesting. You and I could share a common duty assignment, and that specifically is as the assistant instructor for 4th Tank Battalion, San Diego. What lessons did you learn about the selected Marine Corps reserves from this assignment, sir?
We had very good people in the reserves. We were fortunate. It was a trying time for Marine Corps Reserve units, especially at San Diego, where there had been some problems with anti-war demonstrators. The biggest thing, though, that we had was there was an awful lot of Vietnam veterans that were coming back and would affiliate with the Marine Corps Reserve unit, and so there was a good experience level. The majority of the company commanders when I was there most had duty in Vietnam, so there was combat experience in the I&I. I enjoyed that. That was you had this combination of leaders in the civilian community that were also part of the Marine Corps Reserve, and all in all, I think that it was an extremely effective unit. I think it got much better. The training improved, and then later the actions during the Gulf War, you could, I don't think you couldn't ask for a better unit, be it the 4 tanks or 8 tanks, to join in as a whole in terms of the the forces that were there.
Were you there during the Gulf War?
No, I was at the U.S. Atlantic Command. I was in CO Marine Corps Barracks Japan. It left there in 1990, and then reported here in Norfolk with the Atlantic Command. And so I spent the entire time of Desert Shield, Desert Storm there.
Okay. And what year were you the battalion commander of 1st Tank Battalion, sir?
1983-84.
Wow. Okay. What challenges did you face during that particular time, sir?
I think the biggest thing was maintenance was a problem. We had problems, but they were. It did not, by any chance, degrade the ability of the battalion to do what it was supposed to do. We were very fortunate in that General Ernie Cheatham was the division commander when I was the battalion commander, and a separate battalion commander could have asked for no better CG than General Cheatham.
And what was the type series tanks for the battalion during that time?
We had M60A1s.
No 48s were left over?
No, not they had the 48s. All of them had been replaced by M60s when I had the battalion.
Okay. And then staying in 1st Tank, sir, for another question, sir. what were the tank companies like? Obviously, we talked about the challenges, but what were the tank companies like? And then, more importantly, how were the tankers the same or different from modern day tankers?
As we had mentioned before, I think from a esprit de corps standpoint, and tankers being tankers, the tankers that were in World War II in Shermans, and the tankers in 48s in and Shermans in Korea, and 48s in Vietnam, and M60s or M1s. Tanker's a tanker.
Yes, sir. And the companies, how many companies did you have back then, sir?
I had 4 gun companies, H&S, and then tow company.
Okay.
So it's about a 1,200 man battalion.
Yes, sir. What other stories would you like to tell from your time as battalion commander, sir? I'm sure that there's a lot.
Well, I think the biggest thing, I was fortunate that my XOs both had been, we had served together in past assignments, as I had with a number of people that were there in the battalion, mostly in the staff NCOs. I had staff NCOs that the number that had been in Bravo Company 3rd Tanks in Vietnam, and then were there also with me in 1st Tanks. So it was a great battalion.
Yes,
we were very also fortunate that we were doing that transition about learning how to operate as a maneuver element.
sir.
And that was a number of both CPXs and field exercises that were testing those ideas and getting that practice down that was perfected later on. But I think you saw the start of this thinking about the tanks could be used in other than 5 tanks per infantry battalion.
Yes, sir. And I find it interesting that during that period of time, it's got a lot of similarities to the last few years prior to the divestment, in that it's an interwar period. You had the folks coming back from Vietnam that were still, like you mentioned, serving, but really nothing really happened until 89, 90, where the Gulf, where Desert Storm kind of kicked off. Were those challenging times to keep the tankers engaged, and how did you focus the Marines that had not seen combat on the training mission, and the importance of being a tanker?
We did an awful lot of individual training on the range, both with guns to keep that skill fresh, and then the idea of being able to use staff NCOs that had experience to pass that knowledge on to new Marines. And I think we were effective in doing that, so that you had the esprit de corps that's always been with tank units. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, that skill level that was passed on from one to another, one generation to the next.
Yes, sir. As a leader of Marines, and somebody that obviously spent his entire life from early on as an early platoon commander all the way to the rank of 06 colonel, you have demonstrated the leadership principles from the onset at the highest levels. Who are some of the leaders that you have come to respect and helped shape you to be the officer that you were?
Well, I think there are 3 that really come to mind. My first platoon sergeant, when I was at 2nd Tanks, when I went on med cruise, was Frenchie Allman, who was a gunnery sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps, who had served World War II, Korean War, and when 2 tours in Vietnam when I knew him. And this, when you think about the Marine Corps staff NCOs, he is one of those great examples of that. The other was a heavy section leader, J.L. Banner, in the 2nd Tanks. Learned a great deal from him on how to be a tank. And then one of the finest men that I know was First Sergeant Godfrey J. Naquin, who was the First Sergeant of Bravo Company 3rd Tanks in Vietnam. And First Sergeant Naquin was just one of those people that when you looked at him, you just said, here's someone that most individual tankers and infantrymen would follow him to hell.
Mm-hmm.
Great staff NCO, and there's some of the reasons I think that I was very fortunate that I was in the Marine Corps at that time when you had these men that had served in 3 or 2 wars in combat situations, and it doesn't get any better than that.
Yes, sir. And I asked you who shaped you. I'm gonna flip the script here for a moment. What leadership lessons or principles do you have for today's leaders that are aspiring, whether staff NCO or officer?
Know yourself, know everyone that is working for you and with you, and don't bullshit.
Love it, sir. Love it. Simple and to the point. And how did your gunneries kind of change over time? If I remember correctly, talking back to some of the previous folks that served during that time period, there was a lot of changes as far as the way that you all were conducting the ranges and conducting gunnery and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it was technology and the improvements that technology brought, and being able then to take the new systems that were new to us. Maybe not to some others, but were new to us. And I think it's just a matter of getting out, and the whole idea of having a schoolhouse and using the battalion as a schoolhouse to provide the skills that one needs to be successful.
Yes, sir. And were looking at the dates here, it seems to me that you served during the time period where tank school was kind of established at Fort Knox.
Yeah, I did.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, I was the Marine liaison officer to the Armor School or Armor Center, and it also worked in combat developments at the Army Engineer Board, and it was a great tour. I was a captain and then made major when I was there, and it was really you saw all this great stuff that was coming down the pike, that some was that we needed, some that we wanted, and it led to a job after that I was assigned in an office under the Chief of Staff Army, where the Commandant, I guess, made one Marine part of this organization. The Army provided another, that time, Army Major that was going to be in the organization. And then we had a number of civilians that watched all the money. And we were looking at the Armored Combat Vehicle Technology Program that was looking at alternatives in terms mainly at light tanks, light armored vehicles. We were developing or looked at a 75 millimeter high velocity gun with telescoped ammunition that really was would have been a great weapon system. And then we had a 21-ton light tank that would have been a great vehicle I think for both us and the airborne and light infantry within the Army.
Yes, sir. And I know the factors that went into the design of the M1A1, but from somebody that sat in that seat, what do you think won over the Marine Corps for its decision on making the M1A1 the tank next after the 60?
I think that it was obvious that the enemy was changing the advancements that they were making, and at that time it was looking at very much looking at the idea of something in Europe or something in the Middle East, that you were fighting an upgraded tank, and we wanted to be. I think the thing was that we wanted to make sure that we had the best weapon system for Marines to go to war in, and that was the M1.
Yes, sir.
Thing was, you'd go to meetings and you'd get the look of like, what the hell is this guy sitting in the meeting for? And then it would be explained that, well, okay, he's in a joint office looking at technology might help both services. Okay. But it was just you go to, if you went to a new meeting with a new group of people, you had to go through this. Okay, let me tell you my whole history and where I am and how I got here, and then it was okay.
Okay, I got it.
Continue on.
So
I think though that was about the time that Goldwater Nichols was coming in, that was trying to look at us, all of us, being more joint in the way we did things and in the way that we were going to fight together. And I think that was it was an effective office. We had some great ideas. That General Gray saw that the a wheeled vehicle in the LAV battalions could be a great asset to the Marine Corps. So I think that was one of the things indirectly that came out of that program.
Was the LAV?
Yeah.
Okay. Establishment of Fort Knox, sir, as the armor school of for both the enlisted and the officer corps, and you being assigned as the exchange officer for the Chief of Staff, the Army G3. It must have been a little bit odd being the only gentleman walking in the room with a different looking uniform on that says United States Marine Corps. What were some of the challenges being in this new billet and having these folks not really understand necessarily why you were there or where you were coming from?
Well, I think it was like any time you go to a new assignment, it's a matter of you just got to get in and sell yourself and make sure that you establish a reputation for doing a good job and doing a hard job. And I was accepted.
Sure.
I was now on the two different billets that you're talking. At Fort Knox, I was on the R&D side, looking through the Army Engineer Board, different items, weapons, ordnance, etc. It was going to be eventually, or might be brought into the Army, and then the exchange officer in the Pentagon was with the Chief of Staff on this one armored vehicle technology program.
Okay, I understand now. I gotcha. And we mentioned the LAV that came out of your time with the Pentagon, or that
I think indirectly.
Okay.
We were doing a lot of that. The Marine Corps, we were doing most of that ourselves. It was just that whole idea of light forces and the equipment needed for light forces.
Yes, sir. And I guess that raises a good question here, one that the channel hasn't really discussed up until now. The divestment is obviously a decision that's been made, and it's a very difficult one for the community to accept, but there's a lot of reasons why. Do you think, from somebody that has seen technology advance really 3 times, to include all the different variants and different type series, both our competitors and our sister services akin have come to use, do you see the Marine Corps at some point adopting and coming back to some type of an armored vehicle?
Well, I don't mean to sound parochial, but I think it depends on what mission the Marine Corps is going to have as to how the force should be structured. And if the mission goes to any type of sustained land combat, then I personally believe that you need to have a good direct fire support system to support infantry forces in the conduct of operations ashore.
Yes, sir. Then what year was it that you went to the Joint Training Doctrine Division as the chief of special operations for?
That was 1990. When I came back, I was CO Marine Barracks Japan, for all the consolidated barracks in Japan. And in that, I left Japan in 1990, and then was in Norfolk in the old U.S. Atlantic Command from 90 to 93.
Hi, sir. And that was obviously during Desert Storm. So
Yeah, and the thing we were doing, my job was, I was the chief of both uh, doctrine division and joint exercise division for the Atlantic Command. Um, the last year that I was there, I also uh, took on a second hat to be the chief of the Special Operations Division.
How did your experience as a tanker set you up for this assignment, sir?
What set me up for it was that my boss said, "Bill, the Army is not going to find somebody for this, start bringing somebody in for this one right now. So in the interim, you're going to go down. You understand this stuff."
And some of the products that you put out, sir. What
Well, the products there was we did an awful lot of work in the Caribbean with the regional security forces there, putting together exercises that would help them improve their skills and the coordination working with the different islands within the Caribbean. The other thing, we had a very strong relationship with UCOM on joint exercises that were conducted both with U.S. Atlantic Command and with UCOM. And it was we did a lot with Southcom. It was a great command. I learned an awful lot, and really it set up for us where I retired, because we ended up enjoying the people, liking the people in Norfolk, and we came back and have been here 26 years.
Yes, sir. The assignment in uniform helped posture you for what became the next 26 years of your life, as you were assigned with the Marine Corps as a deputy director for the Marine Corps History and Museums. What an honor, sir.
It was a great job. And I was very fortunate in that I had probably one of the greatest bosses in the world. Brigadier General Ed Simmons was the longtime director of Marine Corps Museums and History, and just a wonderful man.
Yes, sir. And the Marine Corps Museum, I should know this, but I don't. What year was it built?
Well, that was all after I was there.
Okay.
What we had when I was deputy director of Marine Corps History Museums, the headquarters was in the Navy Yard in Washington, D.C., where there was a museum that run by the division there. Also located at the Navy Yard was the archives, the library, the Marine Corps Art Collection housed there, as well as a lot of the other artifacts. We had the history. In the history division, the reservists that would be activated to take history teams into operations and write the history of the Marine Corps involved in those operations.
Sure.
It definitely was the thing that let me transition and made the transition possible because of that experience. I was been a history major in college, so I had a passion for history, but this really gave me the skills that I then became the director of the MacArthur Memorial Museum and Historical Center in Norfolk, as well as the executive director of the General Douglas MacArthur Foundation.
Sir. And I've made this comment before, sir, and somebody that will be able to correct me if I'm misspeaking. I have made the comment on the channel quite a few times that the armor community has not done a very good job of collecting, archiving, and really building the armor, the tank lineage, the tank history. And really where as somebody that studies history a little bit myself, where I go to find tank stories typically is through the infantry, either the infantry regiments or whatnot, and finding who was attached to the infantry. And that's really where I've been able to find a lot of the, I guess, good stories and historical moments for our armor community. Is that a true statement, sir? Or do you know of a avenue that I haven't explored yet?
Well, no, I think that is definitely one. We do need to do a better job of, and I think that's incumbent upon all of us now, is to do just what you're doing now, is to capture part of our tanker's history within the Marine Corps and ensure that it's going to be maintained and that it's going to be available 15 years now.
Sir.
I think that the Marine Corps Museum in Quantico has done a good job in some of their vignettes and some of their exhibits where, you're looking at tanks. There are tanks there to help tell that story.
Sure.
And I think the thing we need to do is just to make sure that we have the information, what you're doing, what others may be doing, to try to make a chronology, to make a program, to develop a vehicle that will be able to be passed down, that will be available to people to read, and to get an appreciation for tankers and those that have served in tank units in the Marine Corps history.
Sure.
Which go back to Renault tanks that were in the legation in China. So I mean, there's an extremely long history. Now, I think the Marine Corps Tankers Association, the Vietnam Marine Corps Tankers Association are great places, and they both, I think, are doing things to try to make sure that the lineage that we have inherited and are right now with the last generation that's going to have that lineage and heritage, it's incumbent upon all of us, I think, to make sure that we preserve our part and not let it be forgotten.
Sure.
And probably the best place to do that is to become a member of one of those two organizations, and to provide support to it, because that's what will endure and what's going to be remembered.
Yes, sir. No, that's great advice, sir. I appreciate you saying that. And of note, I understand that the M1A1 is at the museum now, and I once they fully open, I plan on going over there as soon as possible. So, but let's stay on the museum for a moment, sir.
Yeah.
So, like I previously mentioned, your last duty assignment was working in the museum, and then that ultimately became your next duty assignment, but as a civilian post your retirement, where you served as the director for the museum and as the executive director for the General Douglas MacArthur Foundation. Sir, can you talk a little bit about the foundation and its mission set?
Sure. In Norfolk, there are two organizations. There's the MacArthur Memorial, which is the historical center, the working archives and library, an education program, and it's designed primarily to ensure that the legacy of Douglas MacArthur and those who have served with him, or who served with him, is preserved and is presented to future generations of Americans. The foundation, the General Douglas MacArthur Foundation, is a 501c3 organization. So my job as the executive director is to go out and be able to raise money for the foundation that's going to be used to support the programs of the foundation, which are primarily to conduct leadership programs within mainly the Army, but also within the armed services that recognizes leadership, awards to ROTC, JROTC, the Army Cadet Command, and all of these, recognizing those young men and women that are going to be the future leaders in the Army or in the other services. The foundation also, in addition to doing that part, provides monies to the memorial to actually conduct the program. The agreement between General MacArthur and the city of Norfolk was that he would give all of his papers, belongings, memorabilia to the museum, that the museum would be open free of charge to the public, and it would be a center for active scholarship. And we have held true to both of those.
Sure.
So the city provides the operation and maintenance of the facility, a staff to run it. The foundation then provides the money for those, the curators, the educator, the archivist, the money that they need to be able to present their programs, conduct special exhibits, maintain the permanent exhibits, and also then conduct design and conduct educational programs that will go into more detail about the history of the nation from the American Civil War through the present time.
That's fantastic, sir. How did the last year or so post the COVID pandemic affect the foundation?
Well, I think there was a period of time when the museum was closed, like others just about throughout the country, where now the museum is open 5 days a week. We're in the process of slowly getting back into from people, that is on-site visitors. The staff at the memorial had been very effective in developing podcasts and virtual programs of book reviews, lectures, and put that on the internet. And that's really, it has been very, very well received. And the numbers have really basically made up for the people that couldn't come to the museum. We have more right now coming to the museum in a virtual manner than we did in a physical. So I think it has definitely been challenging, understatement. It's been good because the staff at the memorial was able to say, okay, we've got a problem, but I'm going to find a solution. And that's what they did.
Sure. No, that's fantastic. And that's absolute, example of resiliency and making the best of a situation. So congratulations on that, sir. That's quite a feat, especially under today's circumstances. In that investment, sir, we've already talked about the effect that it has had on the community, and both those of us that wear the uniform currently, as well as folks that have come before us and even before you, sir. As somebody that has lived a tanker's life from the 60s on until today, and somebody that has dedicated himself to history and history of our community and representing it in such a proud fashion, what is your message for today's armor community, sir?
Well, I think the thing is, remember the heritage that you have inherited, and whether or not you're in an armor assignment, you have this as part of your makeup, and you just don't forget it. And I think that it's one that all of us can continue to be extremely proud about our service, the heritage that we had, the fact that we were tankers in the Marine Corps. And it's one of those things that never forget it, and always make sure that it is alive and the story is told, and that the heritage continues.
I thank you for that, sir. And I'm going to take a moment and thank the viewers. They continue to make this channel successful, and we continue to grow by the subscribers. So if you've not already done so, please do subscribe. That is really what gives the channel momentum, and that's how these interviews are broadcasted out to folks that have an opportunity to take a look at them. And sir, to you, I thank you absolutely so much for your time and your coming on and telling these stories about your history. And open to any and all interviews, all ranks, all assignments, anybody that's ever served with the community. Doesn't have to be a tanker. We've had mechs on here. Not enough. I need to get some more mechanics on here, but they've come on here. And sir, you are by far the most senior person to be on here. And like I said, I truly appreciate the opportunity and the honor of being able to sit down with you.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing. I think, it goes back to this idea of what's important, and what's important is to capture the story of tankers, the story of what tank units have done in the history of the Marine Corps, and to make sure that information is passed down, because that becomes our legacy long after all of us are gone.
Why, thank you, sir.
So Semper Fi, thank you.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure and honor. Semper Fi to you as well, sir.